Hello, folks. Thanks for joining today in this important subject that has a lot of people very confused. And we're going to overcome this confusion once and for all and help you understand the what is the truth about eating wheat and is gluten bad. Now, I'm going to refrain from using the word gluten here. We all know this is a hard to digest protein that's in many type of grassy grains. But let's just talk about wheat in that sense. We're not going to get into all the research. We're talking about the reality here. The reality is I'm treating people literally daily who are convinced they cannot have wheat, and with digestive aids, changes to their diet, changes to the wheat that they purchase. They are overcoming it like 95%. Now, what we're talking about today is gluten intolerance, gluten sensitivity, which, I would say a lot of people have, and we're going to explain why. And also celiac. We're not going to cover celiac today because celiac is an autoimmune condition. Now, I have treated celiac as well. I've had people who were celiac. They couldn't have wheat their whole life. That's how you know if you're celiac. You're diagnosed early in life, like diabetes type 1. It's if you were eating wheat 30 years of your life and now you're just feeling heavy, sleepy, and having brain fog, you don't have celiac. You can't digest the wheat. So so in case of celiac, that's an autoimmune condition. So the immune system has to be modulated and brought down. I'm not going to get into that, but I have done many webinars on autoimmune conditions, including celiac, and it's a completely separate treatment. Now, people do a lot of things to overstimulate their immune system and make these autoimmune conditions worse, like having too many mushrooms has really created more of cases for me of autoimmune cases because people are taking immune stimulants like mushrooms in particular. And there's many immune system stimulants that can jack up your white blood pressure your white blood cell count and aggravate and start getting an immune response like allergies, hives, rashes, and ultimately inflammation due to an overactive immune system. So modulating or treating an immune system, autoimmune condition is completely a separate subject. So we're not going to talk about celiac, but I will say I have treated it, but in a different way. But everything that I tell you today will still be necessary for a person with celiac because you still have to get to the root causes of there's just two causes for celiac. One, digestion, and two, your immune system. But when we talk gluten intolerance and gluten sensitivity, there's only one problem: your digestion. So I used to say when I traveled around the world speaking, I would say, how many people cannot eat a piece of bread? And, like 20-30% of the people would raise their hand. And then I would say, well, don't blame the bread. You have a digestive system, digestive problem. Let me say that again. When I traveled around the world, people would, I would tell people to raise their hand if they couldn't digest wheat. And once they did, I would say, well, don't blame the bread. Don't blame the wheat. Look at yourself, take responsibility, and realize it's your own digestive problem. You cannot digest it. It's easy to blame the wheat. It's easy to blame the dairy. It's easy to blame the ex-wife, but you need to look at yourself. And in this case, you need to improve your digestion. So what would make our digestion so poor that we can't even eat a piece of bread? And by the way, anthropologists, know that we've been eating dairy for and wheat wheat in particular, up to 3 to 4 million years ago. Even before we were a hunter-gatherer, when we hit the grasslands of Africa, they were just picking these wheat berries right off the top of the grass for a couple hours and eating them. So we've been having wheat for millions of years, not thousands of years. So our body is well capable of digesting it. We have enzymes in the mouth. We have amylase and other enzymes from the pancreas we're making. We've got stomach acids to break down the protein. And even though not all of foods are able to be completely digested, like some hard to digest proteins are insoluble. I mean, there's many insoluble parts of food. Bran is insoluble. There's many insoluble fibers that, are undigestible, and our body's able to eliminate them. So one reason we have a lot more of this gluten intolerance and gluten sensitivity is people are not, let's just say, for lack of a better word, detoxing their system. We're not just talking about making sure your bowels are moving good, which is really important too, because how are you detoxing if you're, constipated or not having a bowel movement every day? But we're talking detoxing the lymph, detoxing the liver, and this needs to be done twice a year, in the spring and the fall, which I encourage all my patients to do, and very few people do. And a lot of the herbs that I give people who have this gluten intolerance and gluten sensitivity are often detoxing and cleansing herbs. So usually I'm giving them digestive herbs to get the digestion going. I'm getting rid of all their bad habits, of course, that are causing the digestive problems. And then second, I'm giving them herbs to detox the system, improve the liver function, improve the elimination of these toxins, because we're consuming toxins all the time. And if you're not eliminating them completely, then you're going to have weaker and weaker digestion, because our digestive system and our elimination channels are very similar in our body. I mean, there's the colon is absorbing nutrients and it's eliminating toxins. So let's talk about some of these causes that, first of all, ruin your digestion. Number one, snacking on crackers, cookies, and nuts. Think of it this way. Your body's making these enzymes. We know amylase helps you digest carbohydrates and grains in particular. Now, if you're snacking on crackers and nuts, you're using up your digestive capacity before you get to your main meal. You only have so much bile. It's the same way with bile. Your body's making so much bile in the liver every day. And if you're snacking on nuts or anything fatty or oily, you're going to use up that bile before you even get to your dinner. So then when you get to your dinner, you don't have sufficient bile because you've used it all up during the day snacking on nuts. And same for other enzymes. If you snacking and grazing and having multiple meals and doing other things that are going to, other foods besides just fruit, because fruit really has its own digestive enzymes that just come right with the fruit. So it's very easy for the body to digest and break down fruit. So it doesn't really burden the body to have fruit. That's why fruit should always be as a snack, give you a little energy, get your blood sugar up if you feel a little tired, but not crackers, cookies, and nuts. I don't know what it is about Americans, but they're obsessed with snacking on nuts. Number one thing to ruin your digestion and weaken your digestion. Now, remember, I just said gluten intolerance and gluten sensitivity is mostly coming from poor digestion. So what's going to ruin it? Snacking, because you only have so much of these digestive enzymes available. You're making them every day. And if you just snack, you're using them up before you get to the meal. So that's number one cause. Other causes that, harm your digestion is cold drinks, cold water, ice water. A lot of people are having ice water with their meals, drinking ice cream at night. This is wreaking havoc on your digestive system. All this needs to go. And some people, of course, in Ayurveda is a very sophisticated system. We have a lot of different terms for different types of digestion that don't exist in English. And one is Manda Agni. Agni means your digestive fire. Manda means dull. So what this means is when you're not hungry all day long, that's considered poor digestive fire. So people don't realize it. If you're not hungry all day till 2 or 3 o'clock, you have a digestive problem. Now, there's other types of digestive issues like Trikshna Agni, which means sharp digestion, and that means you're like hungry all the time, and you get, so that's another issue. Those people get more heartburn and acidity and a more pitta prakriti type of person. And then there's the other type is Vishama Agni. Vishama means variable, and variable means sometimes hungry, sometimes not hungry. and can digest some foods, but not other foods. And this person, mostly a Vata Prakriti, they have what we call just kind of born with a little bit weak digestion. So all we do is just get rid of these hard to digest foods, and like raw vegetables are hard to digest. Big chunks of animal protein are hard to digest. Dairy, of course, we're going to talk about that in another podcast, is hard to digest when it's homogenized, and when it's pasteurized, it has no bacteria to help you digest it. So that's making it hard to digest. Cold dairy makes it hard to digest, but let me go back to the wheat. Here, of course, things that really make things hard to digest is, the processing of the grains. All food's been hybridized. I know some people are saying, oh, but it's been hybridized, we've changed it. Well, all fruits and vegetables have all been hybridized. Tomatoes were once a poisonous substance that, could kill a child. And now we've hybridized them, and now we can eat them and maybe just get a little inflammation from them. So we've hybridized everything, and the body can adapt. The body is very powerful. We have all this digestive capacity to even digest poisons. We can eat poison, our body will just vomit it out and clean it right out of the system. So the body is quite strong. But you want to have that strong digestion. So what are the signs of strong digestion? One, hungry in the morning. And of course, eliminating. If you're not eliminating every day, you have another big digestive problem. You get creating autotoxicity. And, so you have to be eliminating, you have to be hungry, you have to have a good appetite, and you have to eat foods that you're capable of digesting. You can't just I can't give cat food to a bird and horse food to a chicken. It doesn't work. And in Ayurveda, we have different types of bodies, Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and variations like Vata, Pitta, Vata, Kapha, Pitta, Kapha, Pitta, Vata, Kapha, Vata, and Kapha, Pitta, and Tridoshic. So there's all kinds of combinations of people, and the different combinations of people can digest certain types of food better than other types of food. It's kind of like classifying your digestive system is what Ayurveda does. So when you come to me or an Ayurvedic doctor, we're of course, quickly diagnosing your Prakriti and your Vikriti, your body type. And then we're also digesting your state, diagnosing the state of your digestive system and what state it's in. And there's many terms that are not available in English for us to classify your digestive system. And from that information, your body type or Prakriti, plus the state of your digestive system, then we can determine the foods that are going to be most suitable for you that you can eat and not have digestive issues, gas, bloating, acid reflux, constipation, abdominal discomfort. Those would be all the signs. So you really need to fix the digestion. And it's really quite quick. We can look at some of the testimonials I have all over my website under digestion, where people talk about, within days. Here's one here. Tiffany out of Santa Clarita. It's been a week, and I know my digestion is much better. Here's another one. Courtney out of Houston, Texas. I was able to stop taking the herbs as my digestive system began to regulate on its own. See, that's a very good point. See, you're not taking the herbs forever. You're taking the herbs to kind of, fix the digestive system, regulate it again, and take other herbs to kind of eliminate the toxins from the body and get the lymph moving, get the bowels moving. If you're not having 2-3 bowel movements a day, you're not really eliminating fast enough. And we go look here. I have under my website too many testimonials of people who thought they were even celiac, and I treated them, didn't even treat their immune system. Maybe obviously I took it in consideration that they had an autoimmune condition. So maybe I did give them a few herbs for that as well, and took a few things out of their diet that would aggravate their immune system, like mushrooms, which is why I get so many more cases of autoimmune conditions these days, because people are over consuming immune stimulating foods like mushrooms, and then they end up with these autoimmune conditions. Here's a woman here who had IBS. I no longer spend hours in the morning with IBS symptoms. Then she goes on to say, I'm also now able to tolerate gluten again, which I never thought would be possible. So I have people that thought they were celiac their entire lives and just changed the diet, changed their eating habits, got rid of all their bad snacking habits, their cold foods habits, eating too much raw food, eating too much hard to digest food, and suddenly discovered they could have wheat again. Now, most of these cases, if you have, autoimmune condition like celiac, okay, I won't give you wheat on the first appointment because I need time to modulate the immune system and treat it. But I always encourage them after a month or two to go try the wheat and see what happens. But let's go back to some of the causes why we can't digest wheat again. I have a whole bulleted list here. Number one, we're not using yeast anymore. That's why many people, you can just go over and have sourdough bread, which takes 3 days to make, is using yeast and it's needed. And then suddenly they're eating bread again, and they thought they could never eat it. See, the problem was the way we made it. Traditionally, it was always made with yeast, and it was a slow process. So that's often a quick cure for a lot of people. It's much easier to digest. And then, of course, soaked and sprouted grains. See, just like beans, they have that phytonutrient, the skin of the bean, kind of like the egg, the shell of the egg is protecting the egg. Beans have a little shell, grains have a little covering over them that's kind of an anti-nutrient to keep the birds from eating it and stuff. So that's why we always have to soak beans to get rid of that and then throw the water out. You do the same with grains. You just soak this wheat and then sprout it a little bit, and then it becomes gluten-free at that point when you soak it and then sprout it and then have it gluten-free. And you can go down to the health food store and you can go buy whole organic sprouted whole wheat bread, and people aren't maybe buying that. They're getting the reaction to the pizza, the cookie, the crackers, and all the the processed white bleached wheat that we have in our diet. They're not talking about whole wheat sprouted wheat, which is what I have. And then of course the other cause is the pesticides. So you always have to buy organic. And people have noticed who couldn't have wheat, for example, in the United States, they go to Europe and go order pizzas and croissants, and the next thing you know, they're eating wheat, no problem. And then they come back to the United States and they have a problem. Well, that's because of the heavy use of the glyphosate, which is banned in most of Europe and the rest of the world. We overuse pesticides here. So you really, particularly when it comes to grains, and the United States, where you have to have organic foods. You should have organic, sprouted, whole wheat grain bread, first of all. And if you make it yourself with yeast, even better. So I know people that said, yeah, as long as I buy the wheat berry, I soak them, I let them sprout a little bit, then I grind them up and I turn them into flour, and then I add yeast and I knead it, no problem. Or they just fly to Europe where they don't use all the pesticides and you can get more sourdough type of bread. Now, other reasons why people aren't able to digest wheat is inflammation in the colon. We got all these pre-IBS cases. That's why one of the testimonials I read you was from my testimonials about IBS. She came to me for IBS. Loose stools, diarrhea, abdominal pain. Well, of course, when you have IBS, you can't digest wheat. We just put you on, other grains like rice. And if you have diarrhea, we'll just put you on white rice to, I'm treating you. And then once they recover from the IBS, which is inflammation in the colon, so the whole colon's inflamed. It's like raw. All the intestinal villi have been damaged. It's hypersensitive, and you get what's called leaky gut. Things start permeating through the intestinal lining because intestinal mucosa has been damaged. This often comes from a lot of antibiotic use, which has destroyed your intestinal flora. And, every time you do a surgery, you're taking antibiotics. Every time you have a cold, you're taking antibiotics. Every time you have a UTI, you're taking antibiotics. And meanwhile, you're destroying your intestinal flora. in your intestines. And, taking probiotics helps, but it's not a perfect science. We have billions of healthy bacteria, and, we're taking maybe 7, 8, 9 strains in probiotic. We're not, and when we actually have billions of strains, many of which are still undiscovered. So when you're wiping out these your intestinal bacteria with all these antibiotics, it's very hard to replenish them. It's not something you can do in a few weeks just by taking antibiotics. You'll have to take just by taking probiotics. You have to take your probiotics. You have to take a fermented foods, and which have a broader range of probiotics than just taking capsules. But this is another major cause of this gluten intolerance situation that we have, and that is inflammation in the colon due to destroyed villi, often due to destroyed intestinal bacteria due to the overuse of antibiotics. I saw one man speaking and saying that, traditionally humans always lived with a lot of animals. We always lived on the ground. We had a lot of contact with the ground. We had a lot of contact with animals, cows, chickens, horses, all of which, I don't have the cows, but I got the horse, I got the chickens, I got the dog, I got the cat. So I live with a lot of animals. But they say that we were sharing the intestinal bacteria, and even not just intestinal bacteria, but a lot of different pathogens and bacteria were being shared amongst the animals. And we were, of course, getting a lot of this bacteria. Just when you do your own gardening, like I'm in my garden with my organic garden and I'm eating carrots right out of the ground with some dirt on them. I mean, all the bacteria in there is tremendous. I'm eating vegetables right out of my garden without even washing them. I'm just flooding myself with, bacteria, petting animals, you're dealing with the waste of animals. I mean, you're just surrounded in bacteria and pathogens, which really keeps your immunity strong because your body is faced with all these different pathogens, but also you're getting all the healthy bacteria that these animals have, which, I've raised animals for 10, 20 years and never got any type of illness at all. But you can't be doing that if you're giving them antibiotics. See? They have the defenses. And when you live with these animals, you're sharing in this intestinal bacteria, according to one person that I heard. But I think it makes sense. But again, I don't want to just sit here and talk about research. What I want to talk about here is reality. And the reality is every month I get dozens of people who believe they can't eat gluten, and 95% of them I'm successful in treating. Now, and so they're back to eating gluten. Now, in Ayurveda, we have, as you know, we have 3 body types: Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Vata, cold, light, dry, thin person. And Kapha, heavy, dense, oily, slow, tend to be overweight type of person. And then Pitta, warm, slightly oily, sharp, aggressive type of person, susceptible to acid reflux, burning sensation, heat, etc. Well, that Kapha type, excuse me, that Kapha type is not recommended to have gluten anyway. Oops, I said the word gluten. Wheat, or rice for that matter. So if somebody comes to me and they know they're Kapha, they're heavy, they got the round face, the big round eyes, the flowing hair, the big shapely body, dealing with weight their whole lives, and I so clearly this person is Kapha dominant, then I just said, don't even worry about it. Just stop. Ayurveda said you shouldn't be having wheat anyway. It's too heavy for you. You're a heavy person. Don't have heavy foods. So we don't even have to worry about fixing their digestion. We just get rid of it because it's not suitable for that whole type. So that's one way I deal with a lot of this gluten intolerance is, we know wheat is a weight gainer, and that's why it's a heavy food. It's hard to digest. So you have two types of people that shouldn't really be eating it. People who are heavy and don't want to gain more weight because it is a building food. Like the Romans used to say, rice is for merchants and wheat is for warriors, because wheat builds muscle, builds strength, and builds the body. So if you're a warrior, you're a super athlete, you're an army man, you're not going to be too attracted to just having vegetable soup. You're going to want something more building your strength, building your muscle, and you're going to like, higher protein diet, and you're going to like wheat. So that was the old Roman saying, merchants like rice and soldiers like wheat, because it's building. So if you're already a heavy, overweight person, wheat's out anyway, so don't worry about it. And it's because of its one quality, according to Ayurveda, heavy. It's a heavy food. You eat too much, you feel heavy. Now, the other quality, according to Ayurveda, is it's hard to digest. So who it has trouble with the weakest digestion? The Vata type, the thin, light, cold, dry person. They're the person that's getting the gas, the bloating, the constipation easy. So for that person, I just put them on rice, brown rice, because that's what Ayurveda recommends. They shouldn't have too much wheat because it's hard to digest. A lot of times I give them the flatbreads, and they do fine with the flatbreads that are made with yeast, or sourdough bread. So they have to, be careful with the wheat. But Ayurveda doesn't recommend that a Vata type of person live off of wheat, because they need to build. It's a thin person, a weak person. So, they should have some wheat to be building, but they have this weak digestion, so they can't eat too much. That's why they do better with the flat bread, the yeasted breads. Then they're fine. But mostly I just put them on rice. So now we only have one type left, the Pitta Prakriti. Now the Pitta guy, he can have what's called Trikshna Agni, which is sharp digestion. And he can get heartburn easy, got a lot of stomach acids, got a great appetite, type of person that's hungry all the time, eating 3 meals a day. They do the best on the wheat. See, Ayurveda, you can look at any food, and there's 3 main doshas, Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and the food will generally be very good for one type, not very good for another type, and the other type will be kind of somewhere in the middle. So in this case, we know wheat is not recommended for Kapha, so just forget it. And for Vata, they can't have too much because they're weak. But the Pitta, the guy with the strong digestive system, who can almost eat anything, they do very good with wheat, particularly if they're very physically active. They're a soldier, warrior, policeman, army man, and they have that job where they need the muscle, they need the strength. They're gonna want the protein, and they're gonna like their bread and their meat because they're trying to stay fit, strong, and they're very athletic. So they're not gaining weight easy because of their whole lifestyle is very physically active. So that's a better way to look at all food, who's it suitable for and who's it's not suitable for. And then everybody should be doing organic food. I mean, you just don't want to load yourself up with all these pesticides, because you got to detox a lot more to get them out. So people are having all these pesticides. Then they're not detoxing a couple times a year like I recommended. So then they start to have, reactions to everything. All these toxins are accumulating. They create inflammation in the body. They clog your lymphatic system. You get sluggish, and your digestion gets weaker and weaker and weaker, and now you can't eat a piece of bread. So the good news is that this condition can be treated very quickly, particularly if it's just a digestive problem. And you can see I've got a lot of testimonials. We're not talking about research. Everybody's talking research. I'm talking about reality. I'm meeting patients every day. They're saying I can't eat wheat. They're telling, and then a month later they're eating it, and I've got the testimonials on my website with their full names to prove it. So this is not a theory here, but you have to know who you're going to tell to eat the wheat. Not everybody I say, let's just go for it. Some people I tell them you shouldn't be eating it anyway, like I told you. And then other people I tell them do the sourdough. and other people, everybody should be doing organic. And if you have inflammation in the colon or anything like that, then this should all be resolved. And everybody should be doing annual detoxes. And detoxing doesn't mean just fasting. That doesn't clean out your liver or even get these toxins out of your body. It may give your digestive system a little bit of a rest. And if you drink a lot of liquids, it has a certain detoxing effect. But liver herbs will detox your liver. Lymphatic herbs will detox your lymphatic system. Colon herbs will clean out your colon. You do these type of detoxes, which I recommend if you're on my mailing list, twice a year, you're going to have a much stronger digestive system. And you're going to be able to eat a lot more foods. And it's very important because we live in a very toxic world. Particularly, you're eating all these foods that are not organic. You're breathing in, chemicals. You're drinking water with chemicals in it. We have to detox a lot more today than we did in the past. And if you get too many toxins, you start to get a lot of sensitivities and reactions and inflammation, and then this can start to become problems. But let me just say here that, just eliminating foods is not fixing the problem. Eliminating, say, okay, I can't have wheat. Okay, you stop all wheat. And then the people, they don't do grains. Now, of course, the wheat, don't eat gluten fad. It's a fad. It's not, people aren't understanding how to treat it. They're not looking at the causes. They're not fixing the problem. It's like if you had a problem with your brakes because you were riding the brakes and the car mechanic told you, don't ride the brakes. And you say, okay, you stop riding the brakes. Well, that's fine. You stopped causing the problem, but you didn't reverse it. So, you've accumulated the toxins. You haven't been having good digestion. You've got all these bad habits. You have to make the changes to be able to go and start eating the wheat. You just can't start eating it right away. You have a problem. Eliminating wheat, then eliminating grains, and then eliminating all dairy. These people just end up with nutritional deficiencies. I mean, grains have all the B vitamins. I mean, that's your main source of B vitamins is in grains. They have a lot of fiber to keep your colon clean. And of course, you don't digest all of there's some insoluble fiber in grains. Some gluten isn't fully dissolved. Some, wheat has a little anti-nutrient in it, which is somewhat toxic. Well, all that's going to be eliminated. The body can eliminate these toxins. The body can, needs this fiber, even though you don't digest it. So just eliminating grains is, I think, really foolish. You should never be eliminating a whole food group. I mean, we're going to run out of food groups here pretty soon. They've eliminated all dairy. Then they eliminated all wheat. Then they eliminated all grains. Now there's extreme diet promoters saying don't have any fruit. So, I mean, what's next? Pretty soon they're going to eliminate all vegetables and there's going to be nothing left to eat. These extreme diets are always unhealthy, always leading to nutritional deficiencies. That's why people promoting them are always selling supplements, and people on them are always having to take supplements because they know there's deficiencies. There's no need to be eliminating all grains. And besides, there's some grains that are much easier to digest. And there's many grains out there, millet, buckwheat, amaranth, and even seed grains like quinoa that are very different and maybe more suitable for you. So I think here we just get stuck on the wheat. And then we start thinking all grains are bad because technically all these grassy grains do have a small amount of gluten in them. So that's how the theory is. Okay, they even have a little gluten, just get rid of them all. But remember, these are just theories. These are just research. Research is often not correct. Science is always disproving itself years after years. You can't just listen to somebody because they keep saying research, research, research. We're talking about reality here. Ayurveda is very pragmatic. We're talking about the reality of improving your digestion so you can eat bread with the rest of the human population and not just be eliminating foods until you become depleted and weak, which I see every day. So I hope each of you improves your digestion, only eats organic, do annual cleanses in the spring and the fall to keep the body healthy, and be enjoying the rest of the population in having wheat and a piece of bread. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.